It's February 20th, 2020, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, as always, with, I think, 2 or 3 exceptions. Chris Quinn. I am always Chris Quinn. There's no exceptions, but there have been times where I have not been the host. But I'm here again, so thanks for listening, and sorry if you were hoping for one of those rare occasions where I wasn't the host. But I'm back here at Studio B of the Co-Prosperity Sphere. Thanks to Lumpen Radio for having us on yet again. And thanks to the fearless leaders of Lumpen Radio, Misters Logan Bay and Jamie Trecker. And thanks to my main man here in Studio B, Mr. Producer Serge. Doing well. Nailing the fades. I screwed up the intro, but that's okay. I hope he'll forgive me. Ruining his perfect intro record. No fault to yours, Serge. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't be too hard on yourself. Thank you, guys, if you're listening over the airwaves on 105.5 FM, or if you're listening via some sort of streaming radio service like TuneIn Radio or the Lumpen Radio app, or I think there's others as well, but I'm not familiar with them. But if you're listening to them, you probably are. So thank you, guys, for tuning in there. And thanks for the guys and gals who are listening via podcast and downloading it. And for you guys, if you do like the show and enjoy it, I always say that the best way to promote the show is through word of mouth. So if you know someone who's into beer, then by all means, let them know. And what you were saying before, yeah, the mic does pick up everything.
I can hear my jacket.
See, now you can. Yeah, now you can.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So, as I was saying, if you do enjoy the show, you can let someone know about it. Word of mouth is the best. But another good way is to leave a review or a rating or something like that. That's always appreciated. Thanks to everyone who does that. You can also send us your letters, electronic or otherwise. I'll get to that later. We do have some letters. It's an electronic letter this week, I believe. No written letters this week, so we'll be getting to that. But for those of you listening for the first time, thank you for listening to the show. This show, the Insiders Roundtable, is essentially me trying to replicate one of the things I love most about being in the beer world, which is the opportunities I have to sit down with really smart and passionate people who are knowledgeable about beer and who come from beer from a variety of different places, whether it's making beer or educating people about beer or selling beer, marketing beer, anything beer, drinking beer, whatever, writing about beer, getting all these people together and just talking about, what we've made a part of our lives while having a beer or two. And that's what I'm trying to replicate to some degree with this show, the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. So hope you will enjoy. And with that, I will introduce the members of the round table this week. But before I do, I have to mention that their opinions are solely their own and are not affiliated with the opinions of any other entity they may be associated with, which would be literally anything else other than their own. But I'll throw one example out there, and that's Lumpen Radio. They're not Lumpen Radio's opinions or any others. So with that, I will get to my introductions. We always do this in order of seniority. That being how many times you've been on the show, which is the only seniority that I really care about. So I believe it is, give me a show of hands. How many times have you two been on? Not show of hands, show of fingers. Oh, boy.
Should we rock, paper, scissors?
Oh, you talked. Sure. Okay. Okay, yeah. Rochambeau, really quick. It's really good radio because nobody knows. Oh, come on. Both two. All right. Jake.
I won.
Mr. Hot Take Jake. You are the senior member.
I'm the senior member by technicality.
No, that's legal.
Okay.
That's legally
It's binding. It's binding. How's it going, Chris?
Good. Mr. Jake Guidry of Hopewell Brewing.
Yes, correct.
What's up?
Well, it's crazy time of year for us just because we're getting into our we're planning our anniversary party, which is next Saturday. So
what anniversary is it? This
will be our 4th. So
nice.
Yeah, as cliche as it is, time does really fly when you're kind of in on the ground level of a young brewery. So we're excited to get that going. And I'm going to Miami tomorrow too. So on some personal news. So that's
nice.
Fun. So
just not for work.
No, yeah, just visiting some friends. So my first time there, so I'll be excited to kind of check out their beer scene. As crazy as it sounds.
Tell Pitbull I said hi.
Will do.
Cool.
Will do.
Nice. The beer scene down there is something else from what I hear. I'm very curious to hear your takes on it.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside perspective, having not gone there, it seems like it defies expectations for like the climate. Because in terms of
the beer climate?
No, the literal climate in Miami. Like I feel like you would hear a lot about like lager breweries or lighter, but all the beer down there seems to be like high ABV stouts and
pastry stouts,
which just seems crazy for the area.
Right. Oh, and the Florida Vice.
Right. Sure.
Which I guess is
I've actually
fruity,
I've never
tropical,
had. I don't know what that would be like. Is that just is it kind of like the slushy, like unfermented fruit, or is it actually fermented out?
The slushies, I think, are almost like a derivative or a mutation of the Florida Vice. I think Florida Vice are hyper-fruited Berliners.
Okay. Gotcha.
But I think slushies tend to have like vanilla or lactose or something in them. But
should
they're
be
tart and intensely fruity. I always think of Wakefield as
I'll be checking them
Florida
out
Vice guy.
just to kind of see what they're about. Yeah.
Cool. Well, have a good time. Have a good time at the 4th anniversary party. What's going on for that for you guys?
Well, we are releasing our a beer called Four. So it's a wild ale
very
that was
creative.
Very creative. Well, we wanted to just like
you're gonna get a C&D from Surly.
Exactly. There's so many names out there now. You just got to go like straight, literal. But yeah, that's a wild ale, oak aged wild ale that was conditioned on some grape skins that we got from Michigan.
Cool.
So yeah, I actually brought a bottle tonight so we can try it. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Well, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
My next far less senior panel member, Miss Shana Solarte of the Cicerone Certification Program and Dovetail, because you're wearing you're repping your colors right now.
Sure am.
What's new with you, Shana? What's up?
Staying busy. We are finishing up and starting many projects at Cicerone as usual, but pretty psyched.
Not in the middle of any.
No.
Just finishing and starting.
No. That's all we do is finish and start. We don't actually work on them.
Okay.
We've got our Belgian book almost ready to come out, which is what I was spending most of today on.
Belgian book. What's that?
It's a book about Belgian beer styles and culture and history of beer in Belgium.
Oh, wait. Has Cicerone released books in the past?
Yes, indeed.
Which books?
German beer styles, British beer styles, American beer styles.
Oh.
Draft stuff, ingredient stuff.
Who's written them?
It's primarily been Ray and Pat, and then for some of them we've had some outside help. Like we got Dan Imdeck to help us with the Belgian one. He's spent quite some time in Belgium, knows a lot about Belgian beer.
I'd hope so, if he was helping you write the Belgian book.
Yeah.
Okay. And are those
real excited
Cicerone.com? That's where you can pick
.org.
them up. .org.
.org.
Got it.
It's not ready yet. But
the Belgian book is, though. No, the German book is.
The others are, yeah.
Okay.
Belgian's almost ready. So I've been pretty psyched to get that off my desk.
Cool.
And into the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
When's it coming out?
Well, we're in the process of approving the final prints, and then there'll be a little bit of back and forth of like fix this, change that, and then hopefully have it in people's hands by the end of March. Is
Ray Daniels, the founder of Cicerone, is he the type of guy who makes sure his face is on the front cover, or is he more of a like Tom Clancy, where it's like Ray in a bomber jacket on the deck of an aircraft carrier going on its way, sailing to like Oktoberfest or something?
It's actually a watermark on every page of his face.
That's even...
Every page. But it's like a flip book, so if you flip the pages, he winks at you.
He slowly does something?
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
You think I'm kidding?
Can that be real? If it's not.
It's not real. I'll tell you why. That would have to be such a slow wink. If that's all that's happening over the course of the entire book that you flip, one eyelid closes, that would, that'd be...
It's a page turner.
So it makes it worth it.
Right?
You're just waiting for it to happen.
The next watermark. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's the next watermark going to bring? Oh, his eyelash moved a little bit. Okay, good. I knew it was worth getting on
all the best flip books take
list.
a really long time to get to the point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, congrats on the watermark primarily.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. My last guest is a officially first time guest, although she's been in the Peanut Gallery in the past, I believe, just once. But first time officially on the show. Now, Averie, first time guests, the tradition is that you introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do as it relates to beer.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Averie Swanson. I am the founder and beer maker of Keeping Together here in Chicago, Illinois. I came here via Austin, Texas, where I was the head brewer of Jester King Brewing. Brewing or brewery?
You would know.
We'll call it Jester King Brewery.
They seem like they would be an artisan ales type place.
Yeah, we were craft brewery for a little while, and then that got a little too much of a mouthful. Mm-hmm. So, Jester King Brewing in Austin, Texas. Owner and head brewer there. Moved up here about a year ago. So I'm making my beer out of Half Acre Lincoln. The folks there have been very, very sweet and generous to me and have allowed me to take up residence in their original brewing facility, where I am making mixed culture fermented beers, or at least attempting to. I have released one so far and will be releasing the next beer here in the next few weeks.
What's the new beer called? Does it have a longer name? I think each of your beers should have
they're very long,
subsequent
the names.
Longer names.
I've actually gone very opposite direction of how we were doing the naming at Jester King, where we would make the beer and it would sit unnamed for months. And I have like a list of names that I am now making beers for. So the name of this beer will be Architects of Harmony. But this is the first time that I have said that name out loud to anyone other than the poor people that have to work with me. Yeah. So don't tell anybody, and for the love of God, please don't untapped it yet, because I haven't created the beer, and if you do it, then there's going to be like...
Okay.
Yeah, my bad. I mean, within the first 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to curse because you told me not to.
I don't think... Yeah. So, let me think. So, you went against my wishes, and it's a shorter name... The Art of Holding Space.
The Art of Holding Space was the first beer, table beer.
You need 6 words for the next one, man. I think that's just...
of Holding. Yeah. There will be longer names.
Okay, good.
But what was it again?
The second one?
Yeah.
Architects of Harmony.
So it could just be Keeping Together presents Architects of Harmony. That's 6 words.
It could be that, yeah.
There you go. And then Keeping
All of the
Together
names from here
presents
on out will be
Architects of
haiku.
Harmony brings you, and then the next one. Or,
Yep.
it could be haiku.
By Averie Swanson.
Yeah.
And then start doing them in French, so nobody will ever know
They won't even try
how
to
to
say
pronounce
them.
them.
They won't
what
even
they're
try
called.
to untap them.
No, that's a good point.
Can't spell it. You can't check it in.
I'm all for
Right.
Untapped. I just want to make sure that there's just the one,
Yes.
In French.
which
Yeah.
no one told me about until I released the first beer, and they were like, "Have you made the Untapped beer yet?" I was like, "No, should I?" They were like, "Yeah, because if you don't, there's going to be 100 people creating the beer, and it's all going to be different." And I was like, "Oh my god, I
Oh my
can't.
God.
My OCD will not allow that." So I went ahead and made it. And
Well, the
It's
nice thing
fun.
actually, if you're if you manage the page, you can delete other listings.
you?
Yeah. So
Okay.
something I do fairly often.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. You'll see like
Until you come across one that has a higher overall bottle cap rating.
no,
And
you
you're
can
like,
merge them in. You can
Then
merge
you
them in.
merge those
You
in.
merge
Yeah,
them.
You
yeah.
delete
yeah.
that,
You can
merge
merge
this.
them. Yeah.
Okay. Good, good.
Yeah.
It's silly that I know that, but it's part of the gig, I guess.
What
Yeah.
you should do is find a slightly misnamed beer that has a very high rating. Name your beer that beer, and then take their ratings.
Right.
That's what you should
I like
do.
it. I like
that's
it,
what
Chris.
that's what my business model would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
if I were a brewer.
Stealing ratings.
Stealing.
Untapped strategy.
Yeah, untapped
brilliant.
strategy. That Cicerone. Would they be interested in publishing my book?
Probably not.
Chris
Untapped
Quinn
Strat
presents Untapped
The art
Strategy, the
of-
art of untapping
the art of
and then
un-
co-opting
Yes.
untaps
Yeah.
and
Taps.
bottle caps. Mm-hmm. I'm into it.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, it should have some mention of bottle caps in the title too. I'll have to think of what that'll be, but it'll be like, uncapping your potential to steal other beers ratings by Chris Quinn.
And then you make all that money, right? That's
yeah,
how that works.
that'll make that money. But a lot of money in beer publishing, I would imagine. So that's it. That's all we have. Thank you for. Oh, was that me? Oh no. There we go. So Averie, can you tell me a little bit about your brewery? Keeping Together?
Sure.
Oh, a little more about what you're doing.
So I'm just trying to make saison. It's really
Okay.
not all that fancy.
That's all I
I have an appreciation for all different types of styles of beer. I think, given the amount of time that I was at Jester King, really developed a love of saison and mixed fermentation beers. So moving up here, I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do when I moved up here. I knew I wanted to start my own project, but wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to go about doing that. The folks at Half Acre are amazing, and I had several relationships there before I moved here. Got into some discussion with them about potentially consulting on their wild program, which is phenomenal, and they really didn't need a ton of my consulting for that. But they were...
But you took their money.
Yeah, I was not opposed to that. I enjoy hanging out with Lee, who is in charge of their mix firm and their barrel program there, and was very excited to get in there and chat with him about beer. So
Well, you need to tell him. More advice from me, business advice. This is now brewer advice for if you're going to be doing consulting. You go in there, spend a lot of time, really wring your hands, and then after a long time, that's the key part. It has to take a long time. You have to say, you know what?
you're doing a great
Everything's
job.
going great. Really, you're just nailing it. But make sure the check is cashed first.
I mean, I would pay for that kind of affirmation.
Yeah.
I have no problem.
Just
Trust
always
me.
get the money first.
Trust me, I'm an expert.
Yeah.
I wrote a book on Untapped. Anyway, I completely just derailed and
Oh no, that's totally
Whatever you
fine.
were
That's
saying
almost
for my
exactly
own
how
joke.
it went.
yeah.
So yeah, that's not wrong.
I brought one of the saisons from our mutual friend Lee at Half Acre, Geraldine.
Yes.
Yeah, so I brought that, and then I brought one of
Awesome.
your old beers. I don't know if you probably worked on it. It's I think you guys might have given me this bottle. You gave me a bottle of this beer. RU 55 from back in the day. I think it's from.
We made that for a really long time. That was the original Flanders Red inspired beer that we would do.
Yeah. So this was, I think it's like a 2016 bottling of it. So, and then I also brought one of, I found out, your favorite saisons, which is the Sarah beer that we have here. It's actually left over from the
Oh, yeah.
event to you. It's technically your beer.
I don't know.
But Jake opened it. I was saving it to give back to you to take home. Jake opened it.
No, when I see Sante Darius, I'm opening it. That's
as you should.
Yeah.
It's one of the best saisons in the country.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If not the world.
Well, speaking of beers that we like, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for coming on very much, Averie. So I appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on mic officially, not just unofficially in the background mumbling things and getting picked up in
And
the background.
laughing and,
Yeah.
I'll just wrestle my jacket
Yeah.
a little bit.
No, perfect. Perfect. You're already a pro. The other thing you have to do is when someone is talking or when we come back from a break or start the show, you have to be looking down at your phone, presumably on social media. That's what the real pros do. Yeah, like Shana's doing. Yeah.
I can do that.
By the time you've been on for 4 times or 5 times, it just comes naturally. Things are getting started. You just immediately check out and look on your phone. So
There's important
You'll
things
learn.
happening out there in the world.
yeah, you'll learn. So one of the things we always do is talk about beers that we've had recently or are looking forward to trying that stuck out to us for whatever reason. So does anyone want to go first? We don't have to go in order of seniority. No, you don't want to go first. You're shaking your head. No,
I can go first.
Okay.
Sure. I'm super excited about Baltic Porters right now
Why's that?
because they're good.
Okay. Josh Noel just wrote about them or tweeted about them or something like that.
Well,
There were a lot of people being like, yeah, Baltic Porters, they need more love. They're my favorite style.
They're
I
very
always
good.
roll my eye. And they are very good. But all that talk is such BS.
You've been talking to Sir William Charles Moore, haven't you? Because he waxes poetic on Baltic Porter as well.
Oh, I like Baltic.
Well, I'm just saying he was on that kick like a few months ago when I was talking to him. He's always got like a beer style that he's like kind of waxing poetic about for a few months, but I like to hear him wax poetic.
Right. It's the greatest style. You should only be drinking this and smoke beer.
Right.
Always smoke beer.
Yeah.
Always.
So, which Baltic Porters have you been digging?
So, Dovetail just released the Baltic Porter for the first time today. And as a lead up to this, we had a little training at the brewery this week with a bunch of Baltic Porters from around Europe to get our staff sort of acclimated to what Baltic Porters taste like. And so we tried a couple Polish examples. We tried one from Finland, one from Sweden, one from Ukraine, one from Russia. It was really fun. I'm a big fan and have been for a while because
They're lagers, most of them, right?
Typically, so usually the ones that are from like Eastern Europe tend to be lagers, like the ones from Poland, Russia, and Ukraine. But ones up in the Scandinavian countries a lot of times are not. So they kind of, you just make do with what you're used to, with what you're good at. But they all follow a pretty similar flavor pattern. Get a little roastiness and a lot of sort of dark fruit, figgy, plummy flavors, and they're really pleasant. But I'm a big fan of the classic Żywiec Polish porter because it is very delicious and it's pretty boozy. And they sell them in 500 ml bottles, so one of those will treat you to a nice night.
Yeah, no, those are good beers. My favorite has always been Svinbrokov.
Yep,
from Finland. My favorite, wonderful beer. Love
so
it.
good.
Cool.
So that's where I'm at. Baltic Porter season, y'all.
Cool. Anyone else? Who's next? Jake?
I'll go. Sure.
Made you go.
A couple weeks.
gone.
Couple of weeks ago, I visited some family in upstate New York, and they live about 30 minutes away from Suarez Family Brewery. So
yeah,
my second time being able to go, and yeah, they're just one of the best breweries in the country. I think it's really nice to see just sort of like really thoughtful use of ingredients, and everything's really well balanced, and they really don't make a bad beer. So Palatine Pils is kind of like the go-to, but they had a couple of dark lagers on, which is cool. They had an unfiltered Czech dark lager, and then another one of
hear that, Doug Balecki?
Yep, they're here. They're here to stay. But yeah, and then their wild ales are also fantastic. I just really respect what they do. But yeah, and then I got to also check out Hudson Valley Brewery, which is a little bit more kind kind of new school in their approach. A lot of what they call sour IPAs, and big stouts and things like that. So they're cool too, and it's they have a cool approach that I'm actually starting to explore. How do you blending in acid beer with non-acid beer, with styles that you wouldn't traditionally blend acid beer with. So it's pretty cool to see what they're doing as well.
So are the sour IPAs bitter or just
They're
sour
not.
and hoppy?
So actually, I've been talking with Doug Valicki, friend of the show, and he actually was able to procure me a can of the Rare Barrel Sour IPA. I'm kind of looking into the style just to see kind of how they're interpreted. And I'm most interested in the ones that are blending in finished sour beer versus kettle souring and then doing the IPA process. Rare Barrels is much more an IPA, cloudy, hazy IPA with a little bit of an acid profile to it, whereas the Hudson Valley stuff is pretty much just it's kind of more of the milkshake sour with a dry hop. That's kind of how I interpret it. We actually have one of those here today, so we can try it.
The Hudson Valley?
Yeah, I have.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
They're adding quite a bit of lactose to their sour IPAs as well, right?
Yeah. I didn't. There's probably some in the Rare Barrel one too, just because it had some kind of balancing sweetness there. But I'm not totally sure. But for sure, the Hudson Valley stuff has lactose.
Okay, so a sweet and sour hoppy.
Yeah, for sure. And they tend to be fruited, and they're using pretty not esoteric, but pretty out there flavor combinations for sour beer. They had one with chocolate, and so just not something you'd normally see in a sour beer. So, but yeah, I brought one so we can try them out and see what everyone thinks.
Cool. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Are you ready to go, Avery?
Sure.
Okay. Give me some more time to think.
So one of the more interesting things that I've had recently, last night I was over at Metropolitan's tap room and had their English mild, which apparently
At
is
Metropolitan?
Yeah, it's lagered.
Ah.
So basically the exact recipe of an English mild, English inspired grain and hops, very English in flavor profile overall, I would say. Definitely a bit more of a subdued fermentation character, but was very drinkable and was on special for their happy hour. So it was only $5 for a pint.
Nice.
I only had one because I was going over to Beer Temple afterwards, but I very much enjoyed it. Otherwise, I've been drinking a ton of lager recently.
Yeah.
Kind of nondescript, not
not
unnameable lager.
Industrial lager, as Mr. Will Moore likes to
Just, cold beer. So I've been drinking a lot of cold beer.
Okay.
And tasting things in tank and stuff like that. Given that it's right after the first of the year, I guess we're mid-February at this point, but I was not drinking a ton during January.
Dry January-ish?
Not totally dry.
Damp?
But it was, yeah, kind of damp. And just, it's amazing to me how quickly my tolerance, I went from being able to drink 300-pound men under the table to being able to maybe have 2 pints and be ooh, I feel funny. So kind of coming back into my stride here in February. So
okay. Cool. I'm trying to think so I have not been on a big lager kick lately. I don't know why. Maybe it's the weather. I've kind of gotten out of drinking a lot of lagers. Although this is the Suarez Pils. This is exceptionally good. I've really been craving a good, fresh English bitter with really good, I would say maybe 4% ish level, and to me, what I want is a really good English, specifically Kent Golding hop character to it. I haven't had one, so I'm looking for one out there. This is the first time I've just put out a wish for what I'm wishing I had.
Is DBA still in the market? It's not.
Well, maybe,
yeah.
But it's
because that one's pretty much that's EKG, I think, right? Ken Golding's, I'm pretty sure.
It likely, likely is.
If that's the one fresh, maybe not anymore.
Right.
You used to be able to get it fresh, maybe not anymore. But
yeah, no, my favorite American version was it was a pale ale, but kind of an English pale ale. Same thing really, was from Green Flash. They did the single hop series. They had one called Kent Golding, because they did ones with like Citra and Nelson, and then they started getting further down the line, and I saw a single hop Kent Golding's pale ale. I have to try this, and it was amazing. They must have had really good quality English hops, because sometimes English hops are not my favorite. Fuggle, for example, not the biggest fan of that hop. Tastes like dirt to me. But anyway, if anyone out there knows of a beer that I should be drinking that I can get here fresh, please let me know. So this is more of a request.
I feel like Spyful's probably doing one. They're doing those
bitters.
styles.
Yeah, they have good bitters.
Yeah, and I think maybe Midwest Coast. They're starting.
They have a brown ale. I know.
Yeah. I feel like
really
they might
good.
be doing some more English styles. I'm not. I mean, don't quote me on that, but
yeah, I'll have to just probably search a little more. If I did a little bit of searching, it would probably show
that's
very
why we have
quickly.
us on
that
here
there's
just to tell
several
you
of them.
where to find beer. That
Yeah.
you can drink.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm looking for. Is it? It's that time. Yeah, we have to take an underwriting break. So I nailed it. See how I can just tease things out and make it go a little long way. Nailed the underwriting break without even looking. I know you appreciate me, Serge. Anyway, we'll be back. We're going to take an underwriting break, and then we'll talk beer on the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by Averie, Swanson, Shana, Solarte, and Jake Guidry, and Serge, but he likes to go unmentioned. So we're sitting here. I was talking about how I have a food coma. It's just about the right time for me to, start getting tired from it. So I'm going to have to revitalize myself, figure out a way to do that. Maybe having some beer will pep me up. That usually doesn't make you tired or anything like that. So, say, look, Shana is probably doing some sort of social media-ing right now, snapping, probably Snapchat with the dog ears and stuff, I would imagine.
What's that, Chris? I don't know what that is.
Oh, you know. I hope you know, because I really
don't know.
I don't know. So,
Ask your kids.
yeah. If my kids were, well, they probably are, and I don't even know it, but that'd be pretty intense if a 4-year-old was on Snapchat.
Never know.
Yeah, it's
It's
true.
almost certain that they are.
Okay. Yeah. Created their own account. Mm-hmm. All that stuff. Okay.
Does
That's good.
Untapped have that function?
To
Untapped
what
for
function?
babies?
To put dog ears and a snout on your face?
On your beer?
On your beer?
Yeah, like on the can.
Oh my gosh.
Fire up
That's
another book.
Immediate. That needs to happen immediately.
I mean, like, are there filters for your beer? Since your beer isn't filtered to begin with.
That's true. That's right. Yeah, you need to have filters on it. You need to be able to put
Cat ears.
and
eyelashes.
and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The big eyes on it.
Heart size.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how it works. I've never done the Snapchat thing.
Shana make it happen.
I'm putting it in my Rolodex.
To do.
Yeah.
You're looking to start new things. You're just
Always.
finishing up a bunch of stuff.
Love starting things.
All right. So, let's see. Did any of you read any of the outline, which I only
Yes.
sent today, midday. So, pretty late. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
First time guests love to do that. They think they're the first to ever do it. It sounds really good.
I am the first
Oh.
tonight.
So there was a debate. It was like a point counterpoint in Growler Mag. That, well, I don't know. I don't think it was very. It wasn't the. I'm not really setting this up very well. I'm just going to start saying. So the one side was it's essentially must breweries band together. Join or die, I think is what it says, right? And I think it said, the great debate. I'll pull it up right now. I'm sure that the internet will be so fast here in CoPro, as it always is. The Great Debate: Craft Breweries Must Band Together or Die, by The Growler. And the person who agreed was this guy, John Garland. He's the deputy editor of The Growler magazine. And the disagree was this guy, Michael McCullough, who is a professor of agribusiness at California Polytech State University and CEO of Beeronomics Society. He should get together with Pat Berger on his beer pinions and talk about his Beeronomics beer pinions. And other well-named things. So he was saying he disagrees. He says breweries shouldn't band together. Essentially, what I found it to be was that they were kind of not arguing the same point, but I thought it was at least worthy of talking about this thing. Do you guys think it's worth doing, of kind of joining together with other breweries to become bigger and stronger, or do you think that you should kind of there's no need to do that, you should stay independent, you should not kind of look to form these little groups of breweries, and with it the advantages that come with it. And it's interesting because Averie, you're doing contract brewing, right? That's the model.
It's not really
alt prop.
Yeah, it's not really contract brewing. I'm brewing the beer myself and managing the fermentations. We have kind of a unique legal arrangement for it that I think is working out very well. But that being said, the name of my concept is keeping together. And I do feel strongly that we should not be, and when I say we, I don't necessarily even mean just beer makers, but I mean humans in general, shouldn't be trying to create more divide amongst each other than already exists. If anything, we need to be figuring out how to fix and rectify that stuff. I don't know. I can see both sides of the coin for this particular article and this idea. I think that it's up to every brewery whether they want to kind of reach out and try to create and cultivate community amongst the other brewers that they work with or work near in their communities.
Well, also creating community through formal business ties, I think, is different than just creating community. I don't want to push back too hard, but
I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying? You can still have community without being
I agree with that.
in business together.
And I think that this article kind of skips over something that's really important too, where a lot of breweries started their businesses and then never really cultivated a lot of business sense. So it's a lot of breweries that went from 0 to 60 and are now, trying to keep up with whatever it is they're trying to keep up with. Maybe it's their debt, maybe it's serving their community or their distributor or whoever. But I think that there are a lot of people that didn't put in the time to really develop good business sense in what they're doing and develop a sound business model. So I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea to go into business with other breweries and create something bigger than the thing that they've already created if they don't know how the thing that they've already created works.
Okay. Meaning, if you don't know what you're doing, getting together with somebody else isn't necessarily going to help you.
I think that there might be positive things to that if someone else does have a really good business sense and is operating with pretty keen strategy for their brewery. You might be able to learn something there, but it does need to be a two-way street where that person isn't just giving up strategy and isn't giving up their, the secrets to the management of their business that's doing them well. It needs to be a very symbiotic thing.
Well, what this guy, John Garland, is saying, he's saying stuff like, essentially, having co-ops, having mergers, he does say less formal collectives, and basically to take advantage of scale. And he's specifically saying, like, hop contracts rather than spot purchasing, buying cans in bulk and just doing all that stuff. So really kind of going in on, the raw ingredients even of the stuff and kind of banding together. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, this is kind of a cop-out, but it's really, truly a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, there's so many factors at play that determine whether or not your brewery is going to be successful, and it's not just economies of scale necessarily. I mean, I see the point there. Like, yes, if we want to become more, have more opportunity for larger margins for our products, maybe, doing group buys on hops or maybe I think channeling maybe distribution for those who like self-distro would be like a good example of that. Maybe you have 8-10 breweries in a city that are self-distributing. What if you go in on a space where all that's being warehoused and you all pay for the employees? So you're basically running your own kind of smaller distribution company where you're not giving up the margins if you were with a larger company. Mm-hmm. That's one example of maybe correcting some inefficiencies in the space as a smaller brewery. But I like Averie said, I see both sides to the coin. To me, it's case by case. I think banding together, like in and of itself, isn't necessarily like a valuable thing. Because businesses have different ethos, they have different values, is your business plan more about taking care of your employees, or is it more about just getting the most profit? Those things aren't going to mesh if you're coming together. So, like I said, it's going to be case by case. So.
Or what if even just a very simple thing, what if it's trying to go in on a hop contract, but you don't want to buy all the same hops necessarily? Right.
There's so many moving parts to this. I'm sure there's going to be, as we progress as an industry, I'm sure there's going to be ways of consolidation that don't give up independence in terms of how you want to operate your business individually. But I think that's kind of hard to foresee at this point because, it's just this industry is changing on a almost like yearly basis. It's hard to see.
Well, there's the one place that's doing it here in Chicago, kind of, where it was scorched earth, kind of reconcepted as that kind of self-service brew space that has Bulldog in it now.
You said,
is it?
Oh, you mean brew yards?
Brew yards, yeah.
You said scorched earth.
Wasn't that who they used to?
Right. That
Burnt
was
City.
That was originally going to be the space.
Burnt City.
Burnt
Scorched
City.
Earth is out in Algonquin.
Sorry, Scorched Earth. Burnt City, Scorched, Burnt Earth City. Sorry,
I never thought about
bad.
that.
Yeah, no, Burnt City. Before that was Atlas.
Atlas.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I know what they used to be at least. But like in that case, I don't think that it's kind of a co-op, I guess. But they're also, sounds to me, almost like subletting that tap
and
room.
I think and I don't know how that business model is set up, but I think a risk there is if someone kind of really takes off in the space, what happens then if they need to expand, or if they're like driving a large portion of the overall business's revenue or production time? What happens when they grow big enough where they maybe have to leave? I think the same thing with like Great Central. That could be. That's something. I'm sure they're having these conversations, obviously, but that to me is kind of the other end of the coin. It's like, yes, you're reducing risk when you have a lot of different
Great Central
companies.
being the contract brewery,
right? And so but if a brewery gets really large and all of a sudden you have to worry about losing that brewery if they go and do something else or open up their own space or what have you. So,
or if you merge with someone and they're not doing as well.
Right.
Again, what if you're buying a whole bunch of let's just say hops again, but then they found out that their non-hoppy beers are doing better. Well, this is obviously a hypothetical. I don't think that really happens in today's age, but but then you're both kind of stuck with this tons of hops, and I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely, I think, a lot that needs to be thought about before you just start going into co-ops and merging. And it sounds to me like this guy is saying kind of like sell out. If you want to survive, and I don't mean that in like a negative, you're a sellout way, but it's like that's how it's going to work. Someone has to be, I think, in most cases anyway, someone has to be in control, right? It has to be somebody's company.
So the idea is that the primary benefit of banding together like this would be lower prices on raw materials and packaging supplies.
Yeah.
Is kind of the primary argument being made.
Or just scale. You would scale.
Yeah, so like your distro and whatever. How many, like just about every single state in the country has a guild for their brewers. They're doing all kinds of things to promote community and education and, legislative efforts, lobbying in order to, promote the interests of craft brewers. Coming back from Texas, there was a pretty active community there involved with the guild. The guild was, they would put on a festival and there was education summit and seminars and things like that. But there was a lot many resources that they offered that I felt like many people were not taking advantage of that were available to them. And then there were a lot of things that were like, well, it'd be really cool if we could do this, but the resources from the guild weren't being allocated to that, like sensory education and stuff like that, just as an example. So I feel like some of these structures are already in place for people to take advantage of if they're interested, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that they know, maybe it's that they know best, and they don't think that they can learn anything from other people. It might be that they don't want to share what they've learned. I don't know. I feel like, there are structures in place that can get us closer to this idea, assuming that it's the better idea of banding together and creating these co-ops or whatever. And most people are not taking advantage of that as it stands. So I kind of feel like people that do go that route end up doing so as almost kind of like they don't know what else to do. But then again, you look at something like Dogfish Head and Boston Beer Co.
Yeah.
Clearly a very high-profile example of something like this, and very intelligent people behind the operations of both of these institutions or organizations, and clearly they did all of the research required to make that decision, and they all thought it was the best decision for both of their businesses. So clearly there are positive things to it. I don't know how beneficial it is to many really small
in the article
companies.
That was one of the, I think, primary examples that was given was Dogfish Head and Boston Beer. Although that's far from a merger of equals and a co-op or something like that. I mean, Boston Beer bought Dogfish Head. They can call it and that's the thing. They're always going to call it a merger. They're always going to call it this and that. But then there was this article that came out just recently that the CEO or COO and president of Dogfish Head is leaving, which makes total sense. If you're one company, you don't need to have two COOs and presidents. But it just goes to show that these are, it's one company. It isn't like, and they might operate with some level of independence. I mean, I hope they do, but I think to some degree, Sam Adams owns Dogfish Head now. That's what it is. Is that better for Dogfish Head to not be their own company anymore? I don't know. It's hard to say, but I certainly don't know if I think it's better for craft beer for little guys to start merging together. That's the one thing that I thought was weird. I mean, I guess if they could go in on almost like some sort of like buying deal, or they like buy their grain in bulk, but then where are you going to put it? If you can buy a truck of grain, for really cheap, but I mean, what are you going to do? Have a bunch of guys with buckets, just like sorting it out. This is mine. This is yours. So I think it sounds really good. I'm sure that there's places where it's working out, but it doesn't seem like it's happening too often. So I'm surprised that this author presumably thinks that it's must band together or die. I don't know if I agree. The disagree was interesting too. This guy, Mr. Beeronomics, was saying that essentially just own prem, nano, and if your market's too saturated, just go where there aren't a lot of them and just be, a small fish in a big pond, which I think is, pretty classic, business savvy stuff. You just start small, go to where there aren't a lot of competitors, and just that's what it is. Ray's been saying that's the way for beer for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that model makes a lot of sense because there's always going to be the neighborhood watering hole, always. And maybe the shift, it's not going to entirely shift to own premise because people like variety, but there's a reason that a lot of tap rooms do well in a neighborhood where there's nothing else around, because suddenly this place opens up and they've got their neighbors walking in right after work. They get home, unload, walk down to the bar, whatever that bar may be. And I think, small place on the corner where there's the next place over is a big restaurant or formal or a huge sports bar. Maybe all you want is your quiet 6-tap, 8-seat brew pub. Or maybe not brew pub, but like tap room.
Tap room.
Yeah.
See, if we had Mr. Pat Berger on, he'd say, the reason there was nothing serviced there is because they weren't allowed to have bars there because of zoning. But
well, yeah,
I could hear him screaming that. That's why I wasn't served. We weren't allowed to serve them. But I totally hear you. I think they are, they are becoming oftentimes neighborhood spots. Certainly Dovetail. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
great
I'd say
neighborhood spot.
The majority of our regulars live within a half mile.
Yeah.
It's just a neighborhood joint.
Yeah.
A lot of these, a lot of this article, this agreement and disagreement are kind of just self-evident points.
Yeah.
So Michael McCullough, who's the one who disagreed that breweries have to band together, his closing statement here is, there's a lot of room for growth, but it has to be thoughtfully directed. There's little room for so-so craft beers, and some cities don't need another brewery. New breweries need to make high-quality beer, be comfortable with maintaining a steady state level, and have a good long-run business plan. That's obvious. So
it's like opening any new business,
right? So are we saying, at some point, it's if you're going to close because your beer's bad, or you ran your business poorly, or you treated your employees poorly, do they need to even exist? And is that even an issue? I don't think we need to. The quantity of breweries is really that's to me is a moot point. I'm more interested in what the state of craft beer is as an employer. Can people enter this industry and have a viable career without having to go to a big, AB size brewery or even smaller than that? But are they making good beer? That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and kind of by the same token. I mean, not to be too harsh about it, but then rather than merge, if you're going to merge or you're not going to be able to compete at the smallest scale, which I think was pretty specifically what the pro argument was about. It wasn't. I don't think he was writing this for Revolution and top 50 breweries. He was talking about it for little people, and if that's what you're depending on, I would say, in that sense, it's probably better for the overall health of the industry for that company, this sounds bad, to go out of business so the others are more healthy. It's kind of like when a certain population of animals gets overpopulated, they all get kind of sick, so they have to cull them a little bit so they can become stronger. And I'm not saying I want a whole bunch of breweries to go out of business, but if it's literally nano breweries need to band together to survive, then there's probably too many nano breweries, which maybe is what Michael McCullough was getting at. I don't know. Just I just thought it was weird. It's pretty obvious. I wasn't a fan of the join band together or die premise. I don't know. I thought
it seemed like the main argument there was nobody wants to pay so much for your beer anymore. Rah. Band together and get cheaper ingredients so you can price your beer cheaper. I'm tired of paying. I'm going to go back to the cheap beers.
Well, I guess it could also then be just price your stuff cheaper and sell more of it.
Right.
Which is what like every other business does if they are trying to, increase velocity is, just
move more product.
Move more of it and move it however you can. If you don't have to lower prices, more power to you. But,
right. And that circles into the quality argument again. If
you're
making a good product, people will buy it. I mean, don't price it like a jerk, but if it's good, people want to pay for it.
Yeah.
At least a reasonable price.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that acquisition often comes from companies that are, have grown a ton and are, and they're getting to a point where it's hard to grow more. But I don't know, a little guy. Interesting take from Growler Mag. Then again, they name themselves after the worst vessel for beer that there is, so I don't know what I was really expecting from them. So I have. Can we just get to this? This was going to be a short one. We'll take a little bit later break, but I read this and I wasn't even going to put it on the show, Shana, but then I thought of you and Cicerone, and this stuff angers me so much. There was an article in Gear Patrol, and it was, the name of the article was, "Does beer on draft actually taste better?" That's fine. Totally fine. Okay. They were talking about how hard it is to navigate the craft beer scene. It's really confusing. I get that. So they put a bunch of questions about craft beer to a expert. They found an expert. This guy was a beverage director at a craft beer bar, and
sounds like an expert.
Yeah, stocked with over 200 imported cans and bottles, as well as 16 drafts already. I'm questioning some of what this guy is doing. I won't name names, but question number one: is draft beer always better? The answer. First, this is what I thought of Cicerone, but specifically you, Shana. Answer: draft beer is definitely better than bottled, but can be better than draft. That's the answer. It depends.
Where is he getting this?
Well, he says, if you're looking for what cans allow for are proper seals. Even in a glass bottle, oxygen can leak in, so flushing cans with carbon dioxide and sealing a beer shut keeps it fresher for longer. Cans also prevent light from getting in, which can be an issue with bottles, even brown bottles. Light and oxygen are the enemies of beer. Partial truths. Some of those, a lot of that stuff is true, but the gist of okay, you're listening to WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio, but very simple question: is draft beer always better? Very concise first sentence answer. Draft beer is definitely better than bottled, but can be better than draft. What? That is such nonsense.
Where do you get this?
Nonsense.
Where do you get this?
Yeah.
I didn't read this. What's the logic? Did he have logic behind that theory?
I just read
really.
you his answer. That was his whole answer that I just went through and read.
Never talked about why it's definitely better than bottled.
Well, because they have a proper seal.
Do you know how many canned beers I've had with terrible seals?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, man.
And oxygen gets into bottles, and so what you do is you flush cans with carbon dioxide and seal them, and it keeps the beers. And sealing a beer. Hold on. Flushing cans with carbon dioxide and sealing a beer shut keeps it fresher for longer.
And that we do that with bottles as well.
I mean,
No, bottles have that really cool like
sealing it
one-way
shut,
valve, so the oxygen
sealing it
gets
shut
in.
keeps it fresher for longer. Don't you know? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how many people. I'm not saying this because I'm saying it as nobody reads Gear Patrol. I'm just saying I have no idea how many people read Gear Patrol. I'll ask my 4-year-old if he can get off Snapchat for a moment. I'll ask him, and he'll tell me.
It's probably snapping Gear Patrol.
Yeah, he probably
Maybe.
is. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I found this article. This is not. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt the craft beer.
It's not helping.
But this is garbage.
Like your
Still.
Uncle Jim is reading this because he wants to know about the latest gear, and
Yeah.
he also likes beer and sees this
I mean, it
article.
rhymes with gear.
Beer Patrol. That's the other website that we're all starting.
It's another missed opportunity. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know we're coming up with a lot tonight, but you know your gearhead Uncle Jim is going to find this and be like, "Oh, hey, Chris,
Yeah.
you like beer? Look at this cool article about beer. I just learned so much.
I just learned so much.
I'm never going to drink bottled beer again.
Yeah. Because draft beer
Definitely
is
better.
Is definitely better than a bottle. But cans are better than draft because they sealed them shut.
Yeah." those pesky kegs.
Little mini keg.
They have an opening on them.
That just bothered me. Anyway, yeah, someone who just was looking for watches, tech, style, outdoor fitness, cars, buying guides, and deals, which are the other areas of Gear Patrol. I mean, whatever. It was just this, someone just crapped out this article. I don't think there was any thought to it at all. But
I think it points to a larger issue in beer where we're not doing a great job of education as breweries. I think we're just that's something I think breweries can do better at, is just kind of explaining kind of process and things like that. I think it's it's a very competitive industry, and so you kind of get put in this space where you got to kind of brew the stuff that's going to sell. But I think a lot of the time, certain styles don't sell because we're not out there kind of advocating for them and kind of explaining their provenance and all that kind of stuff. So
who do you educate about that, and how do you go about educating them?
Well, I think, from Hopewell's perspective, we actually, this is something that Doug mentioned, I think on his blog, but just be more excited about the stuff that you're doing and feel confident that the people care when you're posting something on Instagram or Twitter. Go into the process, go into the weeds of these things instead of just assuming that your customer base isn't knowledgeable or doesn't care. I mean, they're here, so here's an opportunity. So we're trying to do better with that and getting more in like I said, the weeds of our production process. And people are telling us, hey, that we love this. This is great. Now we have more of an idea of what you're all about, and now we can drink that beer with more of an understanding. And maybe if they didn't have the understanding, they might not have liked it. But now they know where you're coming from, and maybe they do like it.
And we dig into that a fair amount at Dovetail as well. I mean, we've kind of cultivated a reputation for us all being kind of nerds who work there, and we don't have a lot of turnover because the folks who have been with us since day one are pretty much all still there, and people who've joined along the way don't leave because we work really hard to make sure everyone on staff knows all the nuts and bolts of every beer that comes out. And so they're in the tap room and people come in and they expect us to know everything. And so someone who's only been on staff for a couple months is talking about decoction mash. And it reflects, like you're saying, like people see that and they understand where we're coming from. So when I tell them don't drink bottled beer because it's bad, it's worse than draft, they know it's coming from a real deep down in my heart.
Yeah,
belief.
Which is why you guys can.
Yeah.
Because you seal them shut, though, right?
Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, good. Because then it's better than draft.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, that was just something that I needed to vent.
I'm
It was
honored
really
that
just
you
me
thought of me.
Yeah, I was venting because it's just I don't know. I thought we were beyond kind of that just stupid stuff.
Urban myths.
Urban myths.
That draft beer giving you headaches. That one too. That one's something.
Oh, draft beer. I had too many draft beers last night. It's like, no, you had 18 draft beers last night. That's why you don't feel well.
Right. Well, hold on. If you're drinking a bunch of beer from bad lines, will you feel worse as a result of it? I've never heard that you would, but that's really the myth. I think it's bad lines. Drinking beer from dirty lines gives you a worse hangover. I don't know. I mean,
I'm not sure where the myth originates from, but I actually some bartenders have told me that people like.
Let's ask a master cicerone.
It's like more. It's more carbonation or something like that.
Averie.
This is all crap.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There you go. I'll take that. I think that's a definitive answer.
Yeah.
This is all crap.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if that were true, then everybody in England would have terrible hangovers all the time because the draft lines there are absolute garbage from what I was able to tell. So that's kind of
do.
What?
Maybe they do.
It's true. Maybe they do. That's just how they think life is.
Yeah.
The natural state of
Yeah, right? You don't feel like garbage just from living? All right. I think.
Oh boy.
I think.
Show's taking a turn, guys.
Yeah. We need more bitter.
No, it was just a dive it was just a slow sinking. It wasn't even a dive. It's just like, just somebody slowly sinking to the bottom of the ocean, just slowly.
Well, like, how do we change that? The
show, me having a better,
just like
better, more
terrible
interesting
content.
Topics.
It's just like terrible, low quality, uninformed content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to talk about education. Who do we want to educate? How do we want to educate them? There's crap like that on the internet all over the place.
Yeah,
and
probably about everything too, not just beer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I find myself frustrated more often than not with this. Like, well, we need to educate people. But nobody has an answer as to how that's going to happen, who we're going to educate. Do we need to educate brewers? Do we need to educate people in the industry? Do we need to educate consumers? Do we need to educate retailers? Who do we educate and how? And about what?
Okay.
I don't necessarily have an answer. I think that we need to be educating everybody in a way that's like really inclusive and exciting. And I think that beer is amazing and exciting. And there's a way to do it that's not pretentious and making people feel stupid. We don't have to be super pedantic about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at this point, a lot of the people in the industry, we talk about like Cicerone and Ray starting this organization because he wanted people to have the best beer experiences that they could possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
He started this because there were people that would belly up to the bar and know more about the beer than the bartender. Right? Is that incorrect?
No,
Shana?
you're spot on.
So at this point, people behind the bar know plenty. And there are a lot of consumers that are bellying up to the bar that don't know anything about beer. They ask for an IPA. And the bartender says, we only make lagers. And it's like, that's absolutely not going to bring that person back. That doesn't make them feel at home. That doesn't make them feel like they are going to be learning something or having a really great experience. So I think that there is an element of hospitality missing from the industry. And I think that there's just we need to get back to that place of educating people about the things that we're passionate about, and bringing more people into the circle as opposed to making people feel like it's a really difficult circle to be a part of.
Do you think that beer is better or worse than any other type of alcoholic beverage, like cocktails or wine or anything like that?
I feel like beer is positioned in a way that it should be the most approachable and the most accessible.
I totally agree.
I think that cocktails have just like an inherent esoteric nature to them where there's lots of things going on and there's movement and there's crazy infusions.
An ologist makes it.
An ologist, yes.
But even when they don't, like in the same vein of someone comes in and says, I drink IPA in a place that has no IPA. Someone comes into a cocktail bar and says, I like gin and tonics. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, well, we only do this preset list of 18 ingredient cocktails that are going to come served to you in a steamy sphere goblet thing with a firebox on top of it. That's totally off-putting.
Yep.
And it's sort of the same thing. I mean, I don't know about wine either, but like maybe someone comes in
that's
and
the OG one.
Yeah.
The snooty wine
Right.
people.
But like that hospitality, from my understanding, is at least a part of like what SOM training digs into is like you have to be hospitable. You have to have like tableside manner versus I don't know what the ologists are learning. And I know Cicerone's not training on hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think you bring up a really good point of like, how do we not look like jerks to people? I mean, even just now, we are all kind of like scoffing at this article.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we're having fun, but...
Well, I was scoffing at it because there was the beverage director of a craft beer bar in Brooklyn giving BS answers. I was not scoffing at the question.
Right.
I think it's a very legitimate question.
Right.
I think the fact that the answer was put out there from an expert that's what was, I think, worthy of scoffing and making fun. I just want to make that clear. Asking is draft beer better? Perfectly fine question. Perfectly fine question. But yeah, I totally agree that people shouldn't be snooty about beer. I worried a little bit. I've been saying for years that I don't want the winification of beer in that sense, is because I don't want people to feel uneasy about drinking a beer. I don't want them. So the example I tend to use is, I mean, I've certainly been there. I'm still a little bit in certain situations. I can be like this to some degree, although I'm a little more comfortable just in my own palate now. But you're having a wine and you're drinking it, and someone who you know or you think knows a lot more about wine than you do is next to you, and you're like waiting to see if you should like it or not. Like, is it good? Oh, no, it's not good. Yeah, right. So I don't want that to happen to beer. And what I really liked about beer, and I think it is changing a little bit, unfortunately, is people were comfortable not liking a beer because they're like, it's beer. I know beer. I don't like beer. Oh, this one's interesting. I like it. But they were still okay not liking it. And I think that is a little bit changing. I still think it's the most approachable beverage. I think it's kind of just the every person's drink. But there are definitely some snooty beer people out there, and not even snooty, just like, how would you say it? I don't know, elitist? I don't know. What do you consider yourself, Jake? You're kind of the archetype for the person I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it comes down to not assuming that the audience that you're serving is stupid. Just, that, which I think is kind of where pretentiousness comes from. It, like, literally, pretentious means like assuming the other person doesn't know anything.
To assume we didn't know what pretentious meant.
Yes, I'm pretentious about being pretentious, but yeah, I think that can be a problem in the industry in general. But yeah, I think it's really goes no further than that, than just treating the people with respect who are drinking your beer, and not being scared to go into the weeds, like I said, and explain the beers and be confident about what you're doing, but in a way that's hospitable, as we've talked about. I think service is something that can be lost in the beer industry specifically because it's just in the last 10 years that we're actually running the spaces ourselves. The beer was mostly going to bars before that, and we didn't have to care about the service aspect. And now that we're customer facing on a much more higher degree, we're learning kind of on the fly, and we're getting better at it. So I think we have a ways to go, but I think it's overall encouraging. I think the taproom experience is getting better and better.
Oh, totally. On many different levels. And it's funny that you should, mention about not being pretentious or perceived to be pretentious. When I was just working at a bottle shop, it was one thing. But now that we have the tap room as well, sometimes I am there just to have a beer. And one of our bartenders, Ryan, has said to me in the past, if I'm having or talking about a beer or a style of beer that we have on draft that I personally don't like, whether it's less so that particular beer or maybe just the style, and I'm talking to somebody about, I hate this beer, this style is garbage, or this is not, whatever it is. I'm just not, talking about, being an opinionated person about the beer. He says, somebody might be drinking that beer or thinking about getting that beer, and they're going to feel stupid now if they know that you're the owner of the bar, talking bad about that style of beer. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're right. I do have to be careful about what I say. It can be difficult because at the same time, you don't have to like everything personally. I mean, you can respect the fact that other people do like it, and that's kind of the line that I draw is, if you like it, you like it. I mean, go ahead. That's cool. I don't like it. I've gotten pretty good at it because some of the very popular styles nowadays are not my personal favorites. So I try to make it very well known. Those are just not my favorites. I'm a Baltic Porter kind of guy.
There it is.
I'm an English bitter with kind of guy. The heavy hitters. The ones that really move velocity.
Those 3.6s, those 3.8s.
Yeah, Baltic Porters should get up there.
Mm-hmm.
They can be pretty
absolutely.
strong. Yeah. Some of them are a little lower, though. So
yeah.
They can be.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to have a Hopewell beer during the break because I can see DJ Surge getting a little antsy. He's got his mix that he's got to put together, and if he doesn't get through them all, he gets very angry in the second half of the show. So I'll let him go, and
he's really mad.
Yeah, so I'm just going to delay it because he's really angry now. He's just counting down like how much of this song is not going to get played now. But anyway, listen to some beats, and then come back with more of Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. What a fade. I just got to sit here in awe. Welcome back to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I am your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by my guests, Shana, Averie, and Jake. And we're sitting here talking about Texas and sales tax and all sorts of fun stuff. Man, you guys really missed out. That was weird. It's okay. He turned off your mic, so we didn't hear you say sorry.
Sorry.
So we have a letter, and if anybody wants to send a letter, you can send it to insiders@craftbeertemple.com, or you can mail it, an actual letter. And we got an amazing one a couple weeks back from Alex. Alex, I think I still owe you a shirt. If you're going to send it to the Beer Temple. Don't send it to the CoPro. It'll get lost. But you can send it to the Beer Temple, 3173 North Elston, Elston Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60618. If it's handwritten, even better. If it's hand-typed, which I've only gotten once, then you win. Like an actual typewriter that, is stamping the yeah. So somebody typed out a letter. That was pretty impressive. Handwritten's great too. Furthest one that we've had, I believe, is from Hawaii's got to be the furthest. So if you can beat that, then you get maybe a shirt and something else. I don't know. But anyway, this was an electronic letter, and Dave, from Mr. Dave Belford, and he has a kind of a two-part question. I think I might just skip to the second part. Sorry, Dave. But I'll give the intro. He says, "Hello, Chris and Co. I would like to first thank you for hosting this show and giving everyone a peek behind the curtain of craft beer. I have learned so much of the ins and outs and have now found myself in the industry since listening to your show. I have two different questions/topics that are not related but come to mind during the show. The first was about contract brewing when Keith Lemke was on and asking about are people going to start contract brewing seltzer, but we're going to go to the second one. And he says, as mentioned many a time on this show in the past, the current beer consumer trend is, quote, new. Catch all the Pokemon, earn all the badges, etc. When I was getting into craft beer in my early 20s, around 2010, I was constantly trying different beers. Although not new to the market, they were new to me. Matilda, Quack, Fat Tire, Anchor Steam, Yingling, all these beers that have been around for years but not accessible to me legally. Do you think the current trend of new is maybe subconsciously related? For lack of a better term, millennials, he has that in quotes, came of age when craft beer was sort of booming, but had a lot of catching up to do and want to just try as much as possible. Maybe brand loyalty was never going to be in the cards just because so much great beer existed to explore, and now a new beer comes out in what seems like every 20 minutes. Keep up the excellent program. Also, t-shirt size large if you're so inclined." Okay. In Dust We Trust, Dave Belford. Well, thank you, Dave, and I'm sure Dusty and Buster, thank you as well. Well, what do you guys think? Do you think that there's any sort of... Do you think that craft beer has always been built on just of trying a variety of things and not really having brand loyalty? Or do you think there's something different about the current environment?
I kind of think we should take a step back and just ask what brand loyalty is and how one develops that to begin with. Maybe not necessarily in beer, but how do you develop... for people that wear Patagonia, right? For example, I happen to love Patagonia, right? Yeah, point in case here, or case in point. Why do you choose Patagonia over Columbia, right? How do you develop that kind of brand loyalty? Do you go through and try every single jacket that exists out there and then decide Patagonia is what I'm going to wear? Do you wear a different jacket every time you put on a jacket? You don't. Mm-hmm. So, what is brand loyalty? How does one develop that? And why is it in beer now people are just wanting to taste lots of different things at once? And I also don't think that by tasting things like this, you actually get any sort of intimate understanding of the beer, the brewery that's making it. There's no connection being made if you take 3 sips of a thing and say you've tried it. I mean, you can...
If you're just a pure ticker.
Yeah.
An untapped ticker. Well, yeah, I would say you don't really... Well, I guess it depends. It depends. I mean, I think some of the breweries, I might fight you on that one. I think there's some breweries that you can take a small sip of a couple of their beers and you're like, I get what these guys are doing. I mean, especially I think some of these guys, and hey, maybe I am proving your point because this is my relationship to these breweries. They come out with a new beer every week or 2 new beers every week. I have a sip of, every third one, and I'm like, I get it. Hoppy, different hop combinations, a few different variants on IPAs, and then you'll do something different every once in a while. I kind of feel
like a pale ale.
No, like a double IPA. To do a double IPA, maybe throw in a stout, and then maybe get really wild every once in a while and do something different.
Do a bitter.
Yeah, they'll do like a
doubtful.
They'll do like a southern English brown.
A quote unquote pilsner.
Yeah, a quote unquote pilsner. Exactly.
Baltic pilsner.
A Baltic pilsner.
I mean, you make a good question. I mean, it's a good question about brand loyalty. I mean, I think a lot of it is probably just, I guess it could be a few things. I think often it's probably just marketing and you wanting to associate with whatever you feel that brand represents. So, if Patagonia means something to you and Columbia doesn't mean that same thing, you're probably more likely to buy Patagonia. I would assume. I don't know. In beer, I think it could be that you genuinely do like this beer more, and you're not really interested in beer as a whole enough to explore. So you're like, this is what I like. I'm loyal to it. If there's something else, I'm not going to freak out. And then there's people who are like, I'm a Bud man. It's all I drink. If you don't have it, I'll bring my own because I only drink Budweiser or whatever it is. And that, again, I think is more like a Patagonia thing, honestly. In my example, I'm not trying to say that Serge is some completely shallow loser. What I'm trying to say is that I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just wanted to make fun of Serge, really. No, I think what I was saying is, I don't think I have really no feelings towards Patagonia and their brand loyalty. What do you
maybe
think,
that's
Averie?
like an outside, that's like kind of a far out example. But, I think about, and maybe it's just coming up here from Texas, where in Texas, the beer scene in Austin, bit younger than the beer scene here in Chicago, at least the craft beer scene. The beer scene here seems very well established. There are breweries here that have been here for a very long time. And people are very loyal to their breweries here. I think about Half Acre. Half Acre has a very loyal following, and for good reason. Their beers are incredible. There's high quality. They're consistent. They've got a phenomenal brand overall.
Yeah. They've
created a good amount of community here. And I would have said this before I moved here and before I started working with these people. They have created quite a bit of community and a good reason for people to be loyal to them. Whereas I feel like in Texas, with the beer scene as young as it is, people aren't necessarily as loyal to the breweries there. They might go to one brewery on a Monday and a different brewery on a Wednesday, and they don't necessarily feel like they need to go back. There's not that deep-seated love for whatever brewery. I guess maybe there wasn't the impression created at a younger age or a more formative kind of time for people there.
Well, it sounds like now you're almost suggesting what Dave was saying, is that something has changed. Because if you're talking Half Acre versus the Texas beer scene, Half Acre hasn't been around that long. We're talking a matter of 10 years or so. So I'd say that's kind of a drop in the bucket from a overall standpoint. If what has changed, if we think it's just the maturity of the market in the past 5 years or something like that. Jake, I know you have opinions on this.
You want
general
takes?
idea.
You want hot
I want
ones?
some takes. I want some steaming takes.
I think it's an interesting question about kind of how the craft beer in this letter, kind of how the craft beer scene came up, where the fun of getting into craft beer was just trying to try every new thing that you could get your hands on. And I think, for me, when I got into craft beer, which is like at this point 13 years ago, I lived with a friend, and we would, collect bottles and like put them on display like any other college kid would do. But we literally could try every single beer available in that market that was in bottles, like in the span of 2 years, which is just not possible anymore. But when you're doing that, when we were doing that at the time, we were getting up to speed on the kind of world of craft beer. So you're not, even though there's more new beers coming out now, we're not learning nearly as much about all these new beers. It's all kind of permutations of the same thing. So I think it's different in that sense. But I think I kind of lost my train of thought here. But
sorry, it's okay. I'll save you.
Yeah, save me here, Chris.
Yeah. So I think that let me.
Oh, sorry. Let me interject this real quick.
Yes.
But if we talk about Half Acre, or
I told you I'd help.
We talk about Half Acre or these other breweries, or say Firestone Walker, isn't like 50% of their brand 805? So
if not, I think it's more.
Yeah. So like the new is an increasingly it's a niche of a niche of a niche. That's how I think any successful brewery needs to kind of have that kind of aspect of their brewery to an extent to kind of fill out the kind of margins of your business. But at Hopewell, the large chunk of our business is taken up by a few core year-round brands, and those people, I'd say most of those people don't even know about the random like one-off draft beer we do 20 barrels of. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket. That helps us go sell something new to the spots that want it for those customers who do. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we're making our bread and butter through a few beers.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I'd be curious to see. I do think that that niche of a niche is still a very vocal and influential minority, though, because those are the ones who it seems like that's where a lot of these trends start. Like hazy beer started with these little breweries that were doing it. It wasn't something that it wasn't like a White Claw that just like dropped and people or Natter Days or something like that. It was something that the little guys were doing, and the people were lining up for it and they were trading it, and it was something that was difficult to procure, and that was part of what it was. And for a while, American wild ales were like that too, to some degree. And I do think that it seems to me that in the past, Edmar called me old man Chris. There was I was definitely I have some brand loyalty. I don't think I tend to have a lot. I just like to kind of drink rather broadly and kind of what I'm in the mood for, and that's across really everything. I say with soda, I don't really drink soda, but if I'll have a Coke. That's about it. But for me, I would try things, and they would all be kind of little points of reference, and I was trying to then create a map of the landscape through that. I wanted to see the whole picture and understand things, and I wanted to try different stuff and kind of see how that all kind of related. It wasn't as interesting to me if there was a brand new beer that I had to try that new beer, and then I was never going to try it again, and just the fact that it was new was what was interesting. It was stuff that I hadn't had, which is to me a little bit different, because there's a lot of stuff that people have not had nowadays, and they don't want it because they've seen it so much. It's not interesting because they can get it, or have been able to get it but have chosen not to. Again, some people, not everybody. So I think that is one thing that I think is different. I mean, for example, there's a lot of really crummy, in my opinion, Belgian like pale ales out there. Especially if you go to Belgium, there's so many. I never had any interest to try them all. It's like, I get it. Some of these just aren't that good. That's fine. I don't need to wade through them all and figure out which ones I like. I kind of understand to some degree the Belgian landscape, and I'm gonna, drink what I like. If you've had 100 different hazy IPAs in the course of, a year or 2 years, do you need to have? What is the next one going to be that much different?
Well, and to be fair, by having 3 to 5 sips of it, that's not having the beer.
Okay.
Are you keeping notes on it? Are you keeping like really detailed? Are you analyzing this beer every single time?
Was that the only way to
it's certainly not.
It?
It's certainly not. But I mean, what's the point of drinking all of these? Is it to say that you've really intimately known these beers? Or is it just to say, oh, I tried it once. I couldn't tell you what it tasted like, but I had it. It's a one-night stand. It's worthless.
Right.
It's your memory of it is way better than the actual experience, if you're lucky.
And oftentimes, I mean, I've definitely seen it. I'm guessing all you guys have seen something where someone, before they order the beer, check to see if they've had it before, which is, and I should say, not checking their score.
No, they're checking. I think they were checking the. I would assume every beer they have is new. I know people like this. I think they're checking the score, and that's just kind of how.
Oh, absolutely. But I know for a fact because they say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking to see if I've had this before,
mm-hmm.
and then I've had it. People say, "Oh yeah, I've had it," and sometimes it's like, "What did you think?" I liked it, but what else do you have? It's like, okay, well, you don't remember it. You almost had it. You're interested in it, but.
I think this is like a larger psychological question. I think
it is.
I think it's at some point you're chasing this sort of like you're chasing the dragon, as they say, like maybe trying to capture something that you first loved about craft beer that you can't really get back. It's unfortunately, I think there's like wow moments you have with certain beers. Like the first time I ever had a Cantillon, like that's great, and I've had Cantillon since, and those beers are great. But it's not. I'm not going to get that wow moment again. That kind of like revelatory thing, and that's not to say that's bad. But then you can kind of accepting that and just being like, oh, I can just like drink and have these beers now and just like enjoy the company of people that I'm with. I think it's a psychological thing for a lot of these folks. But I think also as like the craft beer drinker matures, as like the Hive craft beer drinker matures, I've talked about this a lot, but I think this new that appetite for that's gonna wane. I think the longer you are in this kind of scene and drinking these beers, you kind of know what you like and you know what your go-tos are, and you're just gonna be less excited about trying the new thing because you know it's not really fulfilling anything besides saying you had it.
Well, to get to Dave's question, do you think that the this phenomenon or whatever it is of this new is around because there's so much more beer now that there's no hope of ever getting everything, so they're just focusing on what's new? I personally don't think that's what it is, but I'm curious if I think that's what Dave was asking.
Well, I think for a lot of us, you need a hook to get people back in the door. Or as a salesperson myself, I need a hook when I go back to a bar because they're seeing new stuff all the time. And yeah, I can, hey, we always have these few beers and that you love, and I'll show them to you, but. To start a conversation, that's just kind of the expectations that have been put on brewers. I'm not sure, it's chicken and the egg. I'm not sure where that started, if that was consumer driven or if brewers trying to differentiate themselves. And I think it's a little bit of both, right? But I think it's important for brewers to understand that they have more weight in this conversation than they think they do. They don't have to be completely at the whims. I mean, someone like Dovetail, they can go out and be very confident and upfront about their ethos and what they're doing, and people respond to it, and they get a lot of praise for that, and that's all well deserved. But I think a lot of breweries would be very frightened to do that, and I think, like, look at the evidence out there. You can go and do your own thing as long as you are committed to it.
I think there's a really interesting aspect to his question about his age group and like coming up when craft beer was exploding, because I'd say I'm probably about the same age, if not like give or take a year on either end of however old our dear
Mr. Belford is.
Mr. Belford. And, I can agree that when I was coming into craft beer, there was something new every day. And when I say something new, I don't mean like a new variation on something I'd had before. It was literally something I'd never heard of all the time. And that's not necessarily happening now. I think that, like, we've seen Goza really surge in the last 10 years, where it wasn't really being made on a large scale. And so people who were just coming into beer had never heard of a Goza. They didn't know what it was, and suddenly there's this like kind of tart little bit of salt flavor. What is that? And now there's a version of it with fruit. And now, I don't care about Goza anymore because here's this other thing that came down the road. And that, I don't think it's really happening quite at the speed that it was before. So maybe like the new is, like Jake said, trying to recapture that thrill of like, hey, this is a brand new thing I've never heard of. Yeah. And we're not really discovering at the same rate. It's not to say it's not happening. There's all sorts of weird, innovative stuff happening left and right, but there are also like 800 billion hazy IPAs being made every week, and they're not new. So maybe that's where the brand loyalty comes in. Like, I know that I like the hazies from this one place, so I'm just going to keep going back to theirs until somebody comes up with something that makes me want to put pants on, go outside.
Right.
Out of my hazy IPA cave.
I think you make a great point about like the discovery aspect. You know, craft beer came out of a situation where, you know, we had prohibition, and then, you know, it was few breweries making like all the same kind of beer. So we had hundreds of years of brewing kind of tradition to catch up when the craft beer boom happened. So we were doing all these styles and introducing, and Goza was revelatory when it came into America and all these things. And we've kind of explored all these kind of crevices, and it's like you're not having these styles come in at the same rate anymore. So now we're like going deep into specific styles, and it's like the variation.
Like a Baltic porter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're going, well, or we're almost like iterating. We're iterating off the same couple styles, I think is.
And I think the issue with that is we're not. I think we have that can be a tendency to like not hone in on a recipe and really get. I think, you know, a good brewery, if they brew the beer once, they can get to like let's say 90% of the way to like a fantastic world class beer. But it's like that rebrewing where you start to get that last 10%. It's sensory. It's like making.
I think it's probably more like 80%.
Sure.
I mean,
whatever that number
same
is.
Brewery after 10 years will have that so dialed in that going back to that first batch, it's not going to be anywhere.
Totally, yeah. It's like exactly. So whatever that
it might be
number
really
is,
good at batch one, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I want to see more breweries do that. That's where I'm personally getting excited. I mean, I know of like being in the industry, it's a little bit different. You have a lot of exposure to beers, but you know, I think the folks that are kind of rebrewing the same recipe over and over and looking at that process and tweaking things like mash temperature, like really small, like minor tweaks that you wouldn't know if you weren't really greatly familiar with those beers. But that's, I think, where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm. And you really kind of get stuff kind of honed in. Cool. Thank you, Dave. I guess we have a large shirt coming your way. If anyone else has a question or comment on anything that you've heard, or just want to get some steaming hot takes from Jake or anyone else who's on the show, it's insiders.
That's a weird way to phrase it.
Yeah.
All right. How long you been hosting, Chris?
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no I don't know.
You prefer like
ulterior
spicy
motive?
Spicy. Spicy's better. I like spicy.
Spicy takes.
Steaming piles of takes. That's what Jake's serving up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, don't let me sit next to him next time.
Okay. Anyway, it's insiders at craftbeertemple.com. I was going to say, you know what? We asked this one a while back. Do you know there was a study on tapping the top of a can before you open it to like prevent it from exploding or anything?
Did they find it to be
the study found
thrilling and accurate?
Well, what do you think the study found?
That it's bumpkus?
It is. Well, the study found this, but I was also watching something about how when you shake up a bottle, that the pressure in the headspace does not go up. So they put a pressure regulator on there, and they said it's at equilibrium, so you're shaking it up. And what they were saying was happening is, because then they'd open it up and it would, explode, was that there were nucleation points on the soda, and that when you shook it up, they were more carbon dioxide was going onto the nucleation points and then, firing out when you did it. And that's why Mentos, in Coke, that it's almost like a little widget where it creates this nucleation point. So if that's the case, tapping on it would, because he was saying and he was showing it on this clear 2-liter bottle of soda. He was flicking the side of it, and the bubbles were going away, and then he'd open it up, and it wouldn't foam up nearly as much, which would make me think tapping on the top of it would do the same thing, right? And make it not foam up. I'm going to make my own experiment as soon as the show is over.
We'll get you some clear cans.
You want a can right now?
No, I'm going to take 2 cans. We have 2 Sierra Nevadas. I'll shake them both up. I'll aim one at Shana, one at Jake.
Okay.
I'll tap one.
I'll film.
You'll film. And we'll see what happens.
Post it on the gram.
Yeah. We'll post it on Snapchat.
Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly. It's called a callback. Well, we are out of time. I wanted to thank my guests, Mr. Take, Jake Guidry, Shana Solarte, and Averie Swanson. Anything in closing that you folks would like to say?
Believe in Saison.
Believe in Saison.
Believe in Baltic Porter.
Oh, it's a trend.
I'm gonna go a little bit more promotional. Not a call to action though.
Yeah.
Hopewell's having its 4th anniversary next Saturday, February 29th, Leap Day. We'll be releasing a beer I'm really excited about for people to try.
Is it the beer that we?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a oak aged wild ale that's been conditioned on some wine grape skins. Come by. You can come by and try that beer. We'll have some food and stuff too. So hope to see people out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks to Serge. Thanks to Lumpen Radio. We will see you guys next week with more of the Insiders Roundtable. So long.